Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex. Grab your pointy sticks and watch out for vampire monkeys. We're landing in episode number 248. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Tired.
We never ask him how he is, do we? We always ask how we are. We never say, how are you? How are you
How
feeling,
are you?
Keith?
I'm exhausted.
Tell me about your mother. Little Freud there.
Yeah.
I was born a poor black child.
I was born at a very early age. Still on overnights. Still exhausted from them.
Looks like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, though, there.
And it's not a train.
Yeah. Well,
Kind of
it
expected
could be.
it to be a train.
Could be, but it gets a little closer. Maybe you'll be able to tell.
Yeah.
What's in the news, Keith?
So Philip Morris is at it again. But not quite the same way he's at it previously. He recently, over the past weekend, was at the, what's the name of it? A convention. Pandorica 2015 convention, being held in Bristol, and said that episode 3 of The Web of Fear does exist. Unfortunately, it was pretty much stolen from him before it could be returned to the UK. He says the negotiations for the return of the episodes took over 6 months. When the episodes were finally returned to the UK, episode 3 had vanished. He believes that after word of the find leaked out, an offer was made to a member of staff at the Nigerian station, and that the episode had been sold to a private collector.
Which explains a lot to why he was very livid about all the leaks and all the information, because I think he knew that was going to make it really difficult to hold on to those. So if in fact that's true, it certainly does justify his frustration over the internet leak, and that's why we just need to be quiet and wait and be patient.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe it's not true. As far as in my memory, he has not come out and been like, yes, these exist, and then nothing happened with them. I mean, he's never flat out said these are the ones that existed. So the fact that he said that about episode 3 makes me believe that.
Right.
And it's a shame.
It is a shame.
Hopefully that private collector will come to their senses and return it to the BBC.
I have one thing to say on the subject, which is directed at the collector, and most of what I would like to say I will not, because this is a family podcast. But I will say shame.
Well,
shame on you, you individual. I don't care if it's for your collection or not.
They're a collector. They're not a Who fan. That's what it boils down to.
They saw, I can make money off of this.
Actually, I hate to even call him a collector. I like to call him an opportunist.
Yeah, that's a better word for it. You are maybe only marginally better than that guy who's charging all that money for the AIDS vaccine right now. Right. But not much.
No, not much at all. Because he at least changed his stance and decided to bring the price down somewhat.
You're both low forms of life, and I hope you burn in hell with people who talk through the movie.
The special hell.
The special hell. That's all I'm going to say on that.
All right, another bit of news.
Wound up. we don't want that. I'm putting the soapbox away before I even get it out.
Another bit of news, which Glenn understands more than at least I do. RTD was recently at the Radio Times Festival talking about things and talked about the BBC and the license fee, etc., and it was going under review, if you remember, recently. He said, speaking of the future of the BBC, I'm trying to find the exact quote. Couple of high-class dramas, no news, no soaps, no weather, no radio station. Google their schedules and see if that's what you want. Meaning that was in reference to American Premium Network, HBO, and other subscribers getting what they get for their money. Where was the quote about the BBC? Basically, it sounds like the battle. He thinks the battle's already lost, so that the BBC will not get the funding it needs, partially because of the HBO format. Which is also interesting because recently it hasn't been fully confirmed by the BBC, but it's been it's, I think, slightly leaked. I can't remember. I couldn't find the article, and I have to go back to look it up. That the BBC was looking at releasing a streaming service for the U.S. for all their shows.
I don't know anything about that, so they don't know.
Glenn, do you want to delve into the BBC stuff?
No, I perused that article briefly, and I got the impression from it that RTD was pretty much saying the BBC's dead in the water. As far as having private funding from the government, or not private funding, public funding from the government, which doesn't. I mean, I think a lot of people are. I understand people in the UK are very upset because I think the BBC is a British institution, and I think they would be remiss to lose it. On the other hand, Doctor Who will survive it because somebody will pick it up. I mean,
so you think they'll shop around the shows?
Yeah, I would assume. I would bet. If anything, BBC America has a good chunk of money in Doctor Who now, and BBC America is not going to let the show die. So at the very least, it'll stay here, and if anything, they'll syndicate it out to some place in the UK, which is sad for the UK because it untethers it from its history.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, it's not like Doctor Who will go away. I think it'll be reshaped and
it'll evolve and regenerate.
Yeah, evolve and regenerate. That's what we're going to say it. I think it's still too early until Congress actually does something, but it sounds like from RTD and others that it's pretty much dead in the water. There's no interest in Parliament to keep it afloat.
The way RTD is talking, I wonder if the idea is more to go for the BBC like an HBO service instead of
that's what
the news and the radio and all of everything.
The idea is for it to be kind of privatized
and a subscription based,
so that it's paid for by the viewers as opposed to paid for by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So if you use it, then you
BBC
get it.
News is such a high established news organization and so very well trusted.
Yeah. That's true.
So, from a journalistic standpoint, to think that might go away is a shame. Or become lessened because of becoming a private subscription service.
That's true.
Our last bit of news. Get your shelves of toys ready. You can now add Missy to the line. They are going to be releasing 2 5.5-inch scale figures for Missy. One in the purple outfit and one in the black outfit.
I saw a picture of them sitting side by side. I thought they look pretty good.
They do look good. I'm not sure if I like Missy's grin in the black outfit, but the molding looks great.
Did you know she's married to Jim Davenport? He was Steve in Coupling, and he was in the Pirates films.
Huh.
I didn't know that. This weekend, yeah. Apparently
you know who that is?
I know. I haven't watched it yet.
You've seen the Pirates movies. He was the guy that was in love with Elizabeth that ended up helping them get them onto. It's John.
Oh, the Commodore.
What's the guy's name? Yeah, no, the other guy he wasn't the Commodore. It was the guy. It was kind of his second in command, wasn't it? Or was he the Commodore?
No, he was the Commodore.
Okay,
he was the one who was fighting Will Turner for her affection.
He was also in Flash Forward.
Okay, yes, yeah, he was in Flash Forward.
You watched that?
Yeah,
I watched the first. Yeah, until they announced the second season, and I went, okay, I'm done with this show. Because once again, you can't take a book and do a just do one season and call it good. No.
Anyway, he was the Commodore. Yeah, you're right.
They are married?
Yeah, they're married. And I think Jack they have at least Jack. That's it, yeah. They at least have one kid.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I did not know that either.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
The Commodore.
For some reason, I was thinking he was second in command to the Commodore. But
well, I mean, technically, he took his orders from the governor, but
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, okay.
And then later from the East India Trade Company, and then later from he took a lot of orders from a lot of people until he finally went, "Screw this noise."
Yeah, there was an interview with her, and she was talking about they live in the U.S. and she talked about how it's much more difficult for her to get work here than it is over there.
Huh.
And unfortunately, because they live here and she can get jobs over there, she has to, go back and forth quite a bit. So, it's.
Huh.
Well, that was quite a surprise. I didn't know that.
Here's a cool little feature. If you get both toys, you can swap their heads. Their heads are interchangeable. So you can, if you want one head on a different body, you can do that.
Why would you do that? Have different hairdos or something?
Well, one has a hat.
Ah.
So if you want the hat on the black outfit, you could swap them.
Ah. Did she wear the hat with the black outfit at some point?
I don't know. I don't remember. I have to go back and rewatch that episode. I don't know. I think it's kind of neat.
What's the point of that?
Because I don't like her smile in the one, but I like the black outfit.
They just make the hat removable.
That would be an option, too. That's it for news.
She's also on Twitter, if you guys didn't have to
She
see
did
that.
just
join Twitter. So.
And said she wants to play the character forever.
Yep.
I can understand why. It looks like she's having a ball. So those Missy figures will look great next to your recently released 5.5-inch Peter Capaldi figure that came out. And the Curator.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
He really should come with his own Dalek and be one of those sets. You know.
Who?
Curator?
The Curator.
He comes with the painting.
I know.
You don't need a Dalek, you got the painting.
Because what
Is the
child
painting
wouldn't want to
lenticular?
play with a painting? Said no one ever.
We discussed that.
Was it? Okay.
We asked if it was lenticular. Nobody's ever looked it up to see it.
I haven't seen it in person yet. I was waiting.
How about our Doctor Who Legacy?
Tip of the week.
Sean's got a tip this week.
I have a tip
What's
this
your tip this week?
Couple-fold. First of all, if you have been following along with the newsletters, you know that it is 150% experience in the fan area from now through Christmas. So that's a great time to beef up your players and whatnot. Also, we're obviously hip deep in the middle of season 9, and they are releasing content weekly to go along with it. The Witches Familiar releases later tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
If it hasn't already.
This is kind of the important one, is you should jump on those when they release and play them, because there's a character drop in each one of those levels. Well, for the first 48 hours, it's guaranteed.
100%.
100% drop. After that, it switches over to a rare drop, and you got to work obviously a lot harder to get them knocked out. So hit them early and get what's coming to you.
Yeah.
Play early and play often. That's your Doctor Who Legacy?
Tip of the week.
All right.
Let's move on to feedback. First up in feedback is Crystal. Crystal says, Doctor Who time equals life is good. Smiley face. Hello, everyone at Traveling the Vortex. I know it's been a while since I sent some feedback. Oops. Stupid college papers getting in the way. Better late than never. I thought I'd give my thoughts on Season 9, Episode 1 of Doctor Who, and I loved it. I watched it with my little sister, and she was not happy she has to wait a week for the next episode. I loved Missy in this episode. I'm glad Stephen Moffat made Missy say it was a friendship with the Doctor and nothing more. I was going to throw my Surface Pro across the room if she'd said she was in love with him. Stephen Russell, too, in my opinion, likes the women to be in love and... Oh, Stephen Russell, too, in my opinion, likes the women to be in love and not as strong. I want more sci-fi and adventure, less romantic in my Doctor Who. Love that Davros is back. He is one of my favorite villains in Doctor Who. Just the whole episode was fantastic, as my favorite Doctor would say. Not one complaint about the episode. I loved it. I was so sad that Clara was going to be leaving Doctor Who, but looking forward to a new companion. I can't wait till the next episode of Doctor Who. Looking forward to your guys' review on this episode. From longtime listener, not much of a feedbacker, Crystal.
Well, thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal. Good to hear from you. Sorry those papers have been getting you down.
Crystal actually sent this out before the new episode released. So
before Witches
they luckily addressed the whole love thing this week, I think. So maybe that satisfied her a little bit.
Yeah. Up next in feedback is Lisa.
Lisa writes, comment question, hello travelers. Hope everyone is enjoying the return of Doctor Who. My view on both these episodes, loads of callbacks to the 5th Doctor. The Master / Missy messing with airplanes, the Doctor no longer has a screwdriver, the Dalek weapon. The Doctor is coming up short and feeling ashamed for not having found a better way. Clara in the Dalek. Scary, but otherwise a bit of Genesis of the Dalek and Listen combined. Why is Clara hanging upside down, besides showing off nipple zippers? No idea, other than another item on the positions to tick off for Clara Jenna. What was with the info dumps by Missy? What was with that transporter thing story? More importantly, why? It's a TV show, not a documentary. If you need explanations of why things happen, make them up yourself. It just seems like everyone's trying a bit too hard to be cool. Sonic sunglasses belongs with the invisibility watch in the bin. Looking forward to the underwater episode next week and the rest of the series because it seems that Moffat is going to be leaving and he's visiting old friends and monsters before he goes. Making sure he has fixed things from the past as well as set the Doctor up for a long future. I've enjoyed his era, and if he is leaving after the Christmas special, which appears to be his spelling out for everyone exactly what the Doctor and River's relationship has been, will be, I wish him even greater success. It's cold on the coast, almost frosty last night, so enjoy the warmth and heat while you have it, because I had to get my jacket out and haven't worn that 2 or more years. Live larger, dream bigger, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
It wasn't until Lisa brought up the parallels to the Fifth Doctor's era that it didn't occur to me.
Yeah,
I kind of thought it's a little bit episode.
Losing the screwdriver, I think
that's
sort of
what
equated to it.
That's what made me think
the airplanes. I hadn't thought about that. What was the? Was it Time Flight? Was that the Concorde one?
Yeah, I believe so.
And then the one that took me a little bit was the Dalek weapon, but she's referring to the gun.
Yeah,
that the humans.
Oh yeah.
That was very interesting. And yeah,
that's great insights. Those are things that I had not thought of.
I had sort of wondered about Clara hanging upside down, but I think that's just more background on Missy and her power control. I think what Missy's done in these last 2 episodes specifically is one-upped Clara as far as being a control freak, as far as making sure that it's conveyed that she's in control. And I think that's I think it's a Missy trait, and I think that's just a product of that. So.
And her being slightly nuts.
Yeah.
And as far as the transporter thing story, I think it was their way of trying to explain how Missy survived last season and this season.
Yeah,
it was all kind of what we suspected, but
I have a thought on that, but I'll save it.
What it sort of told me was that she basically was taking her cues from what the Doctor had done in the past.
Yeah,
I kind of like the way that they did it in the way that. It doesn't matter which Doctor you imagine when I tell you the story. And so they showed 4, 1, and then let's do the eyebrows. So, we'll stick with the eyebrows. But that was kind of a clever way to play it. So
I like that too.
I did do a little bit of a eye roll for the Sonic sunglasses, but whatever. I think Moffat can have indulgence every once in a while.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't become too overused. I like the idea of 12 without a Sonic in general, even Sonic's. I like the sunglasses on him. I'm not a big fan of them being Sonic.
I can sort of see that being a Capaldi mention. When you should get rid of this screwdriver, you can have Sonic sunglasses.
I'm willing to bet, honestly. I mean, this is from the man that brought us the Sonic cane.
Yeah,
I'm willing to bet it's just a one-off and it's a joke, and we won't really. I mean, yes, he's
going
to wear the sunglasses.
Will come back. He just won't use them as Sonics,
right?
Which I'm okay with that.
Because if they become a get-out-of-jail-free card that now he can just wear on his face, then it's going to be okay. Well, this is more Sonic screwdriver.
I mean, admittedly, there is a certain amount of logical progression to that. For the same reason that Star Trek went from a pull-out flip communicator to a piece of jewelry that you wear on your uniform. It just made sense that it's with you wherever you go.
Let's see. If it gets overused, I think it'll be silly. But for a quick one-off funny, I think it was fine.
Yeah. Well, shall we move on to in feedback? Up next is Holly.
Holly writes, "The witch is familiar. Hey guys, wow! I feel like I'm starting this letter off the same as last week. Where to start? We get really great scenes with Clara and Missy. Not even a mention of the scene that happened between the Doctor and Davros. Not even to mention the scenes that happened between the Doctor and Davros. Though I have to say, Davros and Missy both win the award for lying very conceivingly." I can't read tonight, guys. Though I have to say Davros and Missy win the award for lying very convincingly to the Doctor. Sonic sunglasses? What will the Doctor think up next? Didn't see the ending coming with the dead sewer Daleks coming back and taking their revenge on the ones that were still living. No, so hard to say how many Daleks will be left standing after it's all said and done. I'm also wondering why Clara's time as Oswin, trapped in the Dalek in Asylum of Daleks, wasn't brought up, unless it will pay off later. Plus, the scene with the Doctor and young Davros was good. Now we have to see how that pays off later and down the line. My Spidey sense have some wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff might be in the offering with the end scene. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on this episode. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
I wondered that, too, about Asylum of the Daleks, so you weren't the only one thinking that.
I don't think it'll pay off later. I think it was just a cool, see what I did there.
Make you think you're going to do this go one way. It's a misdirection thing.
My humble opinion, but...
What? Back up. What are you referring to?
Clara in the Dalek.
What about it?
About it leading towards Asylum of the
Oh,
Daleks.
no.
Or
I don't
even
think
being
it'll lead...
referenced.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. No, there's a whole other reason why they did that.
Yeah, no. I mean, Mel and I both went, maybe this is, how the
See, I think
it's not going to be
that
that way.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about it a little later, but I think that was calculated then. I'll play that into my premonition. So.
Ooh.
There was a reason why she
premonition.
was in that. There's a reason why she was in that Dalek, and I'll explain.
Premonition, he says.
I'll explain.
Is this an envelope word?
Hey, I figured out this week's episode, so...
You did.
I was a little concerned because as this went along, I thought, oh, maybe I'm way off the mark on this. And then it paid off at the end. So
I also...
When he started counting down, I went, yes, I got
it. But just for the record, so that it is on the record, I'm loath to say this. You were right. Because when we went back and watched...
Bodies don't vaporize
they
when the doctors...
I think it was the reality bomb is what I was thinking of. That
yes,
those people turned into
they did
smoke.
Go.
But the Dalek rays are still just glow in the dark and then dead body. Okay. Damn it, Glenn was right. Okay, more on that coming.
Yes.
I suppose we probably should have sounded the spoiler warning earlier than feedback. I didn't think about that.
I don't think we have to sound the spoiler warning.
We gave the spoiler last week.
When it is aired, where it's
fair game.
Up next is Alex. Alex writes, the only other chair on Scarrow. Hey guys, Alex here. Well, it's been quite a while, hasn't it? I honestly can't remember the last time I wrote in. I think it was around about a year ago? Who knows? Anyway, with the new series airing, I thought this would be a good time to chime in and let you know I'm still traveling the Vortex along with you, albeit at a slightly slower pace. Between starting university last September and getting my first proper job this summer, I've had an extremely busy year, so I haven't quite been able to keep on top of following the show week to week. I'm currently listening to your reviews of Wurzel Gummidge. I can't say
I couldn't say it the other week.
Yeah, Wurzel Gummidge, as I write this, which are very informative. But I'm trying to catch up, and hopefully someday I'll manage it. New Doctor Who time is always very exciting, and I'm super hyped to hear everyone's thoughts on the opening two-parter. Personally, I thought The Magician's Apprentice was pretty weak, all style, no substance, but The Witch's Familiar really brought up the average for me. It's a terrific second half. I felt like the first episode was not so much a part one of a two-part story, but instead a 45-minute prelude to the real episode. Moving all the pieces into place so that they were where the Witch's Familiar needed them to be, so it could be explored all these really interesting themes and ideas and character dynamics. Also, bonus points for Missy actually trying to scratch Davros' eye out. Speaking of which, I didn't really mind them not addressing how Davros survived the events of Journey's End all that much. I kind of like the idea that he just rode out the explosion of the Crucible and then floated off through space till some Daleks tracked him down. He's far too resilient to let something like an exploding starship kill him off. The stubborn old git. Anyway, I hope you're all in good health and good spirits. No idea when I'll actually reach the episode where you read this, sometime next March probably. So, to future me, don't you have coursework to be doing? Stop procrastinating. Until then, happy travels. P.S. About the Patreon gift basket thing, you mentioned needing people's addresses in a recent episode. Well, recent from my point of view, several months ago from your point of view, I think. I remember hearing someone say in feedback that it wouldn't be worth the cost of the postal packaging to send them a basket. I think it's the same for me. I don't give an awful lot, and it would probably cost more than I'm giving you to send the package to the UK, so please don't feel the need to send me anything. The podcast itself is all the payment I need. It's always a reliable source of entertainment on a dull evening. Keep up the good work.
Aw.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
And you guys realize that he's still back in March. Because that's when we did Wordle.
It's true.
So,
He has a lot to get through.
So when you get to this one, I expect in 6 months to hear answers to these questions. First of all, what are you studying at university? And second of all, what's the new job that you started? So I'll be excited to hear what those are here in about 6 months down
This
the
is
line.
really cool. This is kind of like, we're having a cover, because we've got the supermoon, like, lunar eclipse thing going on tonight. This is kind of like a space conversation. It's like, that time delay from somebody out there. So you answer
We're
that.
somewhere out by Pluto, and we have to transmit those messages back there.
We'll expect a response from you, Houston.
Over. All right.
Thank you, Alex. Good to hear from you. And our last bit of feedback comes from Odd Duck Phil.
This is through unofficial channels. Odd Duck Phil sent me a text earlier today. And he says, so, as Clara and Missy are walking off right before the intro, Missy seems to be swinging the pointy stick almost like a conductor's baton as the music is coming on. Is she, in fact, so crazy that she's able to now break the fourth wall?
She still hears the drums. That's amazing.
I would just say par for the course on that one.
I didn't notice that she was swinging it almost to him.
I didn't either. I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, I'll have to go look closer. That's it in feedback. So, shall we move on to our review?
Let's do
Did we decide which we're doing first?
the book. Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Let me pull up the synopses.
Yes.
In this very full episode of Traveling the Vortex, we're bringing you not one, not two, but 3 reviews this week. The first will be our spoiler-free
Yes.
review.
Which might be difficult, but we will do our best.
The book Lethbridge-Stewart, The Schizoid Earth.
Schizoid.
Schizoid.
It's the same term that is in medical.
I
He
get
said
that.
last
I
week
just
they
can't
didn't think
say
there was
it.
a T in it. There's not a T, but there's not a T in schizoid.
Schizoid.
Schizoid. You guys are making it sound
Schizoid.
schizoid.
It's the diamonds.
Schizoid.
Yeah, it was- well, you couldn't say Wurzel Gumridge. I can't say schizoid.
Schizoid.
Schizoid
Earth. By David McIntee?
I think it's McIntee, yeah.
McIntee.
David
David
A.
A. McIntee. And the fine folks over at Candy Jar Books were kind enough to give us an advanced copy of this, which released this week.
It released
On
on Friday.
Friday.
On Friday.
And they had a
So-
big media surge going on. I kept watching Facebook posts and Twitter posts and stuff from Andy Frankenallen, who's a publisher on the book and also wrote the first book, The Forgotten Son.
He's the
He's
series editor.
series
He's the
editor,
series
isn't
editor, yeah.
And so thank you, Andy, for getting us on the list for this. And
Yeah, excuse me. He's part of the publishing team as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
we have a synopsis.
Yes. Lethbridge-Stewart was supposed to be in the mountains of the east, but things didn't quite go according to plan. On the eve of war, something appeared in the sky, a presence that blotted out the moon. Now it has returned. No battle plan can survive first contact with this enemy. Why do the ghosts of fallen soldiers still fight long-forgotten battles against living men? What is the secret of the rural English town of Deepden? Lethbridge-Stewart has good reason to doubt his own sanity, but is he suffering illness or injury or something more sinister going on? Plagued by nightmares of being trapped in a past that never happened, Lethbridge-Stewart must unravel the mystery of a man 10 years out of his time, a man who still cannot possibly exist.
Dun,
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 dun.
dun.
I quite enjoyed this book. In fact, I finished up Thursday night thinking it was going to take me a lot longer to read it, and it didn't because I just couldn't put it down. But we are planning to do a non-spoiler review because we do realize that we, of course, getting it ahead of time, we don't want to spoil it for those people that have just picked it up and bought it on Friday. And I will encourage you to please go out and get it.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
It is a fine addition to what is becoming the Lethbridge-Stewart line. I completely enjoyed it. I will admit that there's a good probably half of the book that it was very. You used the word the other day when we talked about it. It was a bit convoluted,
yes,
but not in a bad way. It was more in the sense that they were really trying to keep you on your toes and try to figure out what was going on. And I think the book does a really good job because it's focusing on several different elements at one time. And it swings back and forth between our different heroes and different places and elements that are going on. That's really hard to talk around.
This is really hard.
But I will say we do get reintroduced fairly early on to Professor Travers and Dr. Ann Travers. And obviously Lethbridge-Stewart is in it. And then we are introduced also to, and the name escapes me, is it Green? James Green? Is he the
reporter?
Reporter, yeah. Which I absolutely loved that we kept getting the name drop to his relationship to Chorley.
Oh yeah,
because apparently,
and that was introduced very early on too.
They worked together, and it was even mentioned that Chorley has been trying to divulge the information of the London event, but has been very much stymied by the British military as he does it. So I thought that was really cool. I like how the government sort of recruits Green to unofficially help them figure out where Lethbridge-Stewart is, because as the synopsis refers to, Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart is gone. They don't know where he's at. He's disappeared. And so I like how they've kind of used him. I think that element of it sort of gets dropped a little bit later, and he sort of gets released.
Once, as a reader, you kind of discover what has happened to Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart. That's kind of when that storyline kind of drops.
And at that point, he feels like Larry Green. Thank you. At that point, he feels a little bit like a device at that point, which I think was one of the things that bothered me a little bit about it, because I think I was getting to really like him as a character, and then that sort of goes away.
He's a very enjoyable character when he starts off and kind of going through.
A very competent and smart character too.
And the what's his name, Major Hamilton, when he kind of ropes him in and he tells him that, well, you have resources that maybe we don't, and he puts those to full use in his quest to uncover what's going on here. And it was exciting to read his little snippets that were interspersed throughout it. But I agree with you. I kind of felt bad once that story arc tapered off, because once we are let in on what's going on, you don't necessarily need him.
Yeah,
he's a vehicle to get you from point A to point B.
It's understandably why the character was kind of then put to the back. But
a couple other characters put to the back too that I think could have stayed in the forefront. But that will go into our spoiler review later.
Yes. But yeah, really good. I liked the suspense. I really kept me guessing what was going on, where we were at, where some of the locations that were happening were going on. And I especially liked coming back to Lethbridge-Stewart's storyline each time, because it seemed to be...
That's when the book always picked up more.
It does. It always picks up, and it gets kind of exciting, because it seems the mysteries most build around this, because quite truthfully, Lethbridge-Stewart isn't let in on what's going on in his particular story for quite a while. And so you're kind of charged with guessing along with him what is happening, what element, what events are happening around him. So I kind of like that. I think what the thing that was kind of left behind with Lethbridge-Stewart, unfortunately, not even unfortunately, it was more because of the situation he was in, was kind of he seemed to be brought back. He had equal time, I think, with other characters within the book, whereas I felt like in Forgotten Son, he was the dominant character through most of it. While there were characters surrounding him in Forgotten Son where they would go and we would, kind of step away from Lethbridge-Stewart's story. He seemed to be more of the anchor of that book. In this one, he's almost a third part as far as an anchor of a whole in this. And that was good because it's a nice change, but it was a step away from somebody who I really, really like as a character.
So every once in a while, it's like, come to the stories.
Exactly.
Much. I mean, it's a Lethbridge-Stewart line of stories.
Although I do want to say, by the end, it solidifies itself as being a Lethbridge-Stewart because of some of the events that happen.
Agreed.
There is a moment that, without getting too spoilery, I suspected that we were probably tying into a certain episode of Doctor Who, and then I kind of got away from that And then I might have come back to it at the end.
I did too.
For something that happens. And as you're reading, you'll probably pick up on that as well.
Well, and if you look at the cover, you kind of will have
the
a
cover
suggestion
sort of
what
gives you that
what episode we're referring to.
That implication.
Yeah. For me, it was a very enjoyable. Some books are better when devoured at once. Other books work fine to put them down and come back to them. This is one that you need to devour closer together because there's so much going on and there's so many storylines and the convolutedness of it. How the closer you can read it all together, the clearer the picture will be. I think.
I agree because I'm afraid if you came back to it, there's so many different elements going on that you might forget.
And even I blame a lot of this on my exhaustion and being half awake for like 2 weeks, struggling to keep track of what's going on where and where the different characters are.
See, and I that was one of the things I thought the book did really well. Is McIntee it sort of he breaks it out
so that sectioned them out. And I understood what characters I was
right. But he sections out everything so neatly that there's, and I didn't feel like any piece got too long where I felt like, okay, let's move on and go back and find out what these characters are doing. It's really kind of charted out and paced out really well. And I thought that what was very helpful is a lot of because the chapters were very long in this book.
Yeah. There were only 14 chapters.
Fewer
in the
chapters
whole book.
and longer at that. But what I thought was done nicely is there's a good break to know that I'm switching to different characters. Yeah. Or at the very least, if we're going to stay with these characters, I've jumped to another element of, some time has passed, or we have gone from one location to the other without all of that dry in between of getting to that location. So I thought, actually, the way it was paced out, I really appreciated the fact that as I came up to like almost a triple space break, and it probably wasn't that much, but as I'd come up to one of those breaks, I'd look at it and go, okay, I got to get ready because we're shifting to something else. And I thought that was actually very, very well.
I agree. The structuring in the book was very well. It's just in the story itself, I sometimes struggled of where certain characters were and what they were doing.
I think part of that was...
And that's part of the storytelling he was doing.
Yeah.
And the elements of the story.
I think part of that also was because all of our heroes or protagonists don't know what's going on. There's a mystery being built in all three sections of this book. And I think what that does is what makes it a little more harder to remember what's going on is because everybody's still dealing with this mystery that isn't revealed to us until much later in the story.
And it's all a very similar mystery.
Yeah.
They all tie
that's
together.
What I thought was cool, too, is they're all discovering something in completely different locations. And they're all part of one element. And that all comes around and wraps up and pulls together sort of nicely there towards the end. So I thought that was a neat element of it.
And once we got about halfway through the book, I was able to kind of figure out a little better some of the issues I had with keeping track of what was going on with certain characters.
Yeah, I think at one point it kind of does this click moment. It's like, oh, okay, now this is why they were here. This is why they're there. But you don't know that so early on.
It's also a kind of, which huge props to the writer for making it work this way, is it's also one of those click moments for Lethbridge-Stewart, where he starts questioning things, and that's when it, for you, goes, or at least for me, it went, oh, okay, now I kind of understand what's going on now.
It wasn't necessarily him that I had the click moment in relation to. It was another character that we can't divulge because it's a huge element of the story. But it's that character that really... That
was where I sat up and went, what?
Yeah, well, that's that character that I thought really was kind of piecing the things together, at least on a kind of a fringe level, that really I started going, okay, I see what's going on here, and based on this other character.
It's all around that. It's all around that time frame in the book for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Welcome back.
No, you're right. It's definitely one. I would preach patience with this because it seems very discombobulated to start with, because you've got this piece of information dropped here and then here and then here and then here, and you're kind of just, as you jump from scene to scene, from location to location, from character to character, you're kind of going, what is going on? But stick with it because there's a reason for it.
And the payoff,
and all of those things will pay off once you get through and reach that certain moment, then it all starts, that through line starts to make a little more sense. You go, oh, okay, and you kind of catch up with the characters at the same time as you do, which is unique because a lot of times, especially in a Doctor Who arena, even though this isn't specifically a Doctor Who book, but we've talked before about so many times the Doctor is ahead
to
of
connect
the
the universe,
and he's he knows what's going on even if we don't. And when you watch the show or whatnot, sometimes you're in that position of we can't let you in on this until we get to here.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to be along for the ride in some cases with characters who don't know anything that's going on, even though you've been given more pieces of the puzzle than any one of these characters in the story. You still can't make heads or tails of it until they write the pieces for you. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then they all start to connect together and they get it at the same time.
Because there are some books where it's very frustrating where you get the pieces and see what's happening very early on and understand what's going on. And it's not the characters until much later when you think the character should be way smarter than that.
Yeah.
And so this isn't one of those books because you are kept in the dark longer,
along with the characters. So it's understandable why they have it
with the characters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was another thing why this book was so captivating for me. And I found myself reading, even though they're long chapters, I found myself reading chapters.
I was able to breeze through it pretty quickly.
And so I think that's what was so captivating about it is I was sticking with it because the story was interesting enough to me that I wanted to get to that mystery. I wanted to get to that point where it's revealed, or at least I have figured it out, hopefully before our heroes. And so I think that's what kept me really driven to keep continuing on because I kept thinking, I'm going to unravel this mystery. I'm going to figure out why this is here. And there's a lot of false starts for me because I would start to think one thing and then something would come along and like, nope, that's not where we're going with it. And I think, oh, okay, back to square one. And so I kind of like that aspect of, it was almost kind of Sherlockian in the fact that you start going down one path and then something happens and you go, okay, we have to eliminate this and go to this now. And it's just really how it felt. And so I think that was one of the things I had the most enjoyment of it as well. So one of the things that I do want to point out is there is another novel in the Doctor Who universe called The Face of the Enemy that's also written by David A McIntee, and it is somewhat connected.
Really?
It is a sequel to a certain story that I don't want to divulge until we talk about this a little more spoilery, and it even shares, and thanks for Andy for tipping me off into this, it actually shares a character in both books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so everybody that's read The Face of the Enemy will know what I'm talking about. However, if you've read Face of the Enemy and you start reading this one, you're going to go, oh, well, it obviously is connected because this is the same character. So it was nice for, I think in a way, McIntee to kind of get a chance to play a little bit more in the story that he continued and set up for. So I think that was kind of neat. I also learned, and I think it was in the book that he wrote, I think the writer said that this was the first book that he'd written without an outline.
Oh, yeah.
And my first thought was if I'd have written a book without an outline, I'd have been all over the place. But I really don't feel like he was over the place.
He had it wound up being a very concise story.
It did. And I will say this about it. It does feel a little rushed towards the end.
See, I felt like the ending, it didn't feel rushed to me. While maybe rushed isn't the right word. There's peril, but not as big of peril as there might have been. And so
it's not world-ending peril, but it's world-ending peril. So it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. And it's peril for characters, but not world-ending peril. Yeah. And it felt like since it's based on the characters, how they resolve the peril, I'm okay with because that's the only way to resolve it.
Yeah, there was no choice. Yeah.
See, I was almost more thinking that the neat little bows that seemed to tie up everything post-peril, I thought was where it felt maybe a little...
You think so?
A little rushed? You thought that part was rushed?
Well, and it's difficult to say one way or the other, because realistically, once the story is done, once you have finished with the peril, and you've reached a climax, and that's it, how much wrap-up do you really need? Is what some people would argue, is that you can only do so much. I mean, after you save the world, I really don't need to know what the guy did for the next 6 months. I mean, sure, he went out to a Chinese restaurant and he did the blah, 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 blah. And so I'm glad that we didn't have all of that, but at the same time, it seemed like that, I don't know, maybe subconsciously the decision was made that, okay, this has ended, we reached the climax. Oh, yeah, I still have some of these characters out there that we never really wrapped up.
Yeah, it does certainly feel a little bit like that. Yeah.
Excuse me. But going back and, kind of wrapping up what happened to them, which, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they were forgotten altogether. I'm choking on something. Excuse me. But, yeah, I mean,
Well, I also wondered if maybe the reason it felt rushed is because we've developed the mystery for so long. I think you're right. I think it's kind of the afterward type stuff that really kind of feels like it. Yeah, maybe it left me wanting to know a little bit more. But I think the reason why it felt rushed, even kind of maybe in the climactic moments, are the fact that you were, once it's kind of divulged to you as the reader as to what's going on here, and you suddenly start to see the larger picture, the bigger puzzle, at that point, you've been building up to that so that when you get to that point, it wraps quickly because it's like suddenly you're at that aha moment, and then, well, obviously this is kind of what has to happen. And so I think maybe that's why it feels a lot. But you're right, sort of the afterward type stuff, and it's not technically afterward because it's still part of the chapter of stories. Agreed, there was a little bit more I wanted to know about the characters in response to what happens that we didn't maybe necessarily get as much as I wanted. I don't want to
say it's anticlimactic.
It's not anticlimactic.
Because it's not, but it is after the climax.
Right,
so
right.
Post-climatic.
Yeah. Post-climatic, maybe that's.
It's almost like you hit the peak and rolled down the hill too quickly.
Yeah.
So,
but that's. I mean, it's a small complaint for what was otherwise a very solid story.
Yeah,
and definitely
it was
worth
very
the time
solid
to read.
story. I recommend you pick this up. We are, according to the ladies that are administering the
yes, it
book
will
club,
be the book club book for October
for Goodreads. So if you haven't picked it up, please pick it up. Read along with us in October, and then we will revisit this again, hopefully around the beginning of November, with a little bit more of a spoilery review. We can kind of divulge some more details and information.
Once we get more people on board with it.
Some squee moments that I'm having to refrain from now because when it all kind of tied together and clicked, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of great things here.
Yeah.
So.
This is tough to do without spoiling it.
It really is. But again, thanks to Candy Jar Books for allowing us to do this, and look forward to another more in-depth review coming up.
I'm going to tip my hat just a little bit and say what I'm very, very excited about is Beast of Fang Rock,
which actually comes out next month.
Yeah,
I think we've decided to sort of do the same thing. Once we're done with it, we'll do a kind of non-spoilery review, and then later on down the line, when we can kind of divulge that one, we'll do a little more too. So.
Assuming we're still on the good list.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fang Rock is one of my favorite Doctor Who stories. So when it was announced early on, Beast of Fang Rock, I was like, "Oh, we're going back to the White House," and I got real excited.
All right, shall we move on to the comic book?
Yes,
we finally got the 5th issue of The Four Doctors, comic event by Titan Comics.
Written by Paul Cornell.
Did they ever give us a reason why it was delayed?
I have not seen.
Nope. Because there wasn't anything.
Because there wasn't anything in here that tied into the episode. So that's what I was concerned about, maybe.
Well, what I was concerned about was the last story got completely rewritten because there was too much of a tie-in to the episodes.
Oh, that's possible.
And that would maybe kind of placate my displeasure in this final story. It wouldn't make the final story any better, but it might placate my concerns over why it went this direction. Suddenly, we get a very Moffat-esque time folding back on itself, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey reset button. And what do you guys think? I wasn't pleased with the direction that it went. The other thing that was very disappointing is who didn't show back up?
Yeah.
The War Doctor.
The War Doctor. This is a 4th Doctor story, and I think, as I've been implying for weeks, the 4th Doctor in the rest of the series is this future version of 12.
It really is.
They pulled a fast one on us.
They really
did.
did.
They pulled the 5 Doctors on us.
Yeah.
That's it. So apparently now any multi-doctor story, you just add a doctor in very briefly and then call it one more doctor than it really is.
Oh, you know what?
Patrick Troughton's really not in the two doctors enough.
Here's something that I suspected. Because of a certain
William Hartnell's not in
cameo...
the three doctors very much.
It's true.
Oh, my God.
Because of a certain cameo in this story, or maybe a couple of cameos, I wonder if they hadn't gotten clearance yet when we get 9 and Rose at the table.
Oh.
And I wondered if maybe there was a delay on getting that clearance.
Technically, there's your fourth doctor.
Yeah. There's 5 technically in this one then. Yeah. We go by that formula.
Well, 6 if you want to be really...
If you want to count all of the doctors, it's 6.
Was there another one in this one?
Well,
9.
No,
overall in the
10,
arc.
The whole
12.
story.
The
Yeah.
whole 12.
Right. Oh, I thought you meant in this episode. Well, but the 4
And
doctors...
then we also got the alternate versions of 10 and 11.
The 4 doctors was
There's like
actually...
15 doctors in this guy.
The 4 doctors was actually working because in the first one you only had War 10, 11, and 12. And then from the rest of them you had 10, 11, 12, and alternate 12. And so then when you add 9 into this one, then kind of throws the whole single issue 4 doctor formula off. We're going way... I think I'm trying to avoid talking about how it was so frustrating with this story.
For such a great build-up.
And a wonderful cliffhanger in the last issue.
And a wonderful cliffhanger. We get into this one.
Shall we touch on how they resolve that cliffhanger?
Let's talk about the cliffhanger.
The Weeping Angel in the comic box.
There's a tiny weepy angel in the box. So you've been reading along. The whole thing, the 11th Doctor is very concerned about his French comics. Through the whole thing. Don't forget my comics. I can eat the comics, blah, 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 blah. And I think we had all kind of reached that point where we suspected that there was something of import in the box. Yes. Mm-hmm. That it wasn't really French comics. So, I'm forgetting names now.
Gabby?
Gabby. No. Alice. Alice gets gunned down.
Right. In the end of the last story.
Gabby screams at the end of the last one. Well, she screams because she opens the box of comics. And inside is a tiny weeping angel that apparently then grows and zaps her.
Turns out they can grow. Actual line of dialogue.
Now, if this had been an episode of the show, and
I would have as much problem with this as I did with this Statue of Liberty.
If this was a linchpin moment of apparently they can grow. All right. I mean, we've seen cherubs, the little ones, and so it kind of sort of makes sense that they could grow.
But not in this sense.
Why in rapid session like that? No. Why in rapid
session? The cherubs, it would be over time.
Yeah, exactly. Why in rapid session? Why do you, what sort of confining properties of shrinkage does this wrapper on these comics...
It's a wibbly-wobbly, spacey-wacy box.
What kind of field does it create so that it's almost like the tissue... what's the master's tissue compressor? The tissue. It's almost like the tissue compressor in reverse. It's like instead of making them small and then like compressing all the tissue, this is like in reverse. It like expands the tissue or something. But we're talking stones, so they don't have any tissues. So it's
and the kicker is we didn't need for it to grow. It could have just been a little weeping angel.
That'd be fine.
That would have, and that's
and in fact, that would have worked with the whole that it sent her back only a certain amount, undetermined.
Did you read?
They try to explain that.
Did you
yes,
read?
I did read that because
I
saw him carrying the comics. And thought this is going to be important.
the little goofy comic at the end is called "The Doctor Shops for Angels," and it explains that he goes to the Weeping Angel store. That has a whole collection of these things. It's a museum where all the weeping angels are constantly on surveillance. And he actually finds one knowing that he's going to have to send Gabby back in time a certain, to a certain point.
Right.
So he needs a weeping angel that's going to have that. And apparently they can measure this, that this angel will send you back this far. So he buys that one.
Which would have worked better. Would have worked better if it was because it was a small angel. It was would have been a finite amount of time that they could send you back. But...
apparently they can grow. Oh, no, sorry. Turns out they can grow.
Turns out they can
That's a direct quote from the comic. So Gabby goes back in time to the meeting at the cafe with all the companions, and she's screaming at the previous version of herself and Alice and Clara not to let the doctors go to Marinus because it ends badly.
And yet that doesn't stop them. Which
This
I'm glad
time
that
they
wasn't
decide
the
to go
resolution.
take the picture.
Yeah.
So this part I kind of liked is that the doctors show up, and despite all of the evidence, this is what happens, this is how it goes down, so-and-so's dead. So-and-so got sent back in time. We needed a tiny weeping angel to get out of this. Do you have any idea? Oh, yeah, that sounds really bad. What do we do? Well, obviously we should go.
Well,
because that's a doctor thing, That's
to be fair, the picture is still there.
yeah.
Yeah.
As
So
they point
hadn't undone it enough.
in a very this pleases me Back to the Future style timeline, the photo itself still exists. Therefore, we're in trouble. Okay.
That gives you your justification for them having to go back to Marinus.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a flaw here. Because I figured out that whatever they're going to do, they went back and made it work. And they changed. They must change time because who blinks out of reality? The Gabby that came back.
Future Gabby, yeah.
So obviously they fixed it. So no matter what they do to fix it, they fix it. So then at that point, you've told me already that everything's going to be okay. No matter what happens from here on out, it's inconsequential. And so
It's a little Bill and Ted.
Yes, exactly. It's very,
Which,
very.
again, is fine, but when you're going, remember a trash can. And then one magically appears right where you needed it because you're going to go back and do it
Right,
later. It's
exactly.
kind of like, that works in some cases.
So
but
now
not
you're
in
just
others.
in the mode of, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to just see how you've resolved this. Now
Yeah.
I know everything's fine. And you know everything's going to be fine anyway because it's Doctor Who and they're going to resolve it. So everybody that's out there going, well, we knew it was going to be fixed anyway because it's the end of the story. But when you do that at the beginning, you sort of cheapen the element of can it be done?
Yeah.
Now we're just going to see how they did it.
Well, and in this format, I mean, there are new characters introduced. I mean, there is peril for at least two of them that we know. We don't know what their future is yet.
I think it would
So
have...
two of them potentially could die in this, and they would move on with the comics and introduce someone new.
True.
I think it would have been...
It almost would have been better if Alice did die instead of them fixing.
I didn't expect them to do that though because
I
those
didn't either,
I think
but-
they've invested so much in those characters, and it would be
Plus, I like
difficult after
Alice.
one
Yeah,
season. Yeah,
I
me
do
too.
too, but-
it would be difficult after one season to say, okay, let's start new with new companions.
It almost would have worked better if you could have found a way to have included future Gabby on the first go-round.
Yes, yes.
Because when you pull this at the end, as you pointed out, we know you're going to get out of this. This is the last issue. There's no way you can screw this up any more than has happened for the previous four. If you'd pulled this early, then maybe either A, we'd have forgotten that she was there, or B, along for the ride, and as things unfolded, you have to deal with. But instead, you get kind of a truncated, one of the panel directions is even one continuity bomb detonation and glitch through the throne room of Time Lord Victorious later. So we're skipping huge chunks of the story to hurry up and get to the end.
I was
now.
a little grateful for that though because
we
I
didn't
thought
have
I don't
to
want to
revisit.
see all this
Yeah.
again. We already know what happened here.
It's very Princess Bride. Skip to the end. So they go back to Marinus, and we stop off at a crashed Dalek saucer, which I presume is the same Dalek saucer that the War Doctor brought down in the first episode, even though he's never showed back up. And we pick up something mysterious, and we go back, and the Vord take over the 12th Doctor. But this time he is able to exert his influence on them. And
And then they all team up in the white space and defeat other 12th Doctor. Beardy Doctor.
Beardy Doctor. And then, unfortunately, Glenn's awesome Vord get reset back to
Crummy Board.
Crummy Board.
No, they weren't crummy ever, but this was, super awesome board. Went no longer displaced from time.
And at least they kind of try to talk about it, as Tennant says, I don't like it. I don't like what we've taken from them.
Yes.
But it's interesting that...
It's funny to hear Ten say that.
Well, it's kind of become his line. I don't like it.
Yeah. Although he was a bit more mopey than any other, so I suppose that kind of does fit. I do like the cameo appearance. I do like the fact that they even explain why he was never there.
Yeah, it seems like, and probably rightfully so, that 9 is Paul's favorite Doctor.
Could be,
since he wrote for him in Father's Day, etc.
That's true.
The way it reads is, I can know why he wasn't involved in this. Just the way it was written sounds like, I love 9 so much, and he's so wonderful. I wish I could have included him, but I couldn't.
Right.
So the way they almost gush about him.
Yep.
He was where he was anything other than fantastic.
Yep.
Which, okay, it's a nice sentiment.
Yep.
And he was great.
He was fantastic. It was great. I can kind of rationalize it out as, okay, coming on the heels of being the Doctor after the War Doctor. Being the one that comes after that button got pushed.
To be able to recover the way 9 does.
And be the Doctor again.
Yeah.
In such a way that, even as we've talked about Eccleston being a little darker or a little more moody about things, which, rightfully so, but to never succumb to it and still manage to bounce back from that is like, okay, I guess that, for purposes of this story, I'm okay with the way that plays out. But it's frustrating that we had such a great ride for 4 episodes, and then it just...
And the stories kept getting better and better and better, and then it just falls flat.
It just...
How would you have done it any different?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I come down at the very end of the day. I'm like, how could I have done it any better or any different? And I don't have an answer. So I don't want to come down on Paul Cornell too much. I think I wanted something more. I wanted something different. I didn't want to reboot. Didn't want to reset.
Well, and it almost feels very much like, I don't know, maybe there was a delay because maybe he wrote this without an outline. And he got up to episode 4.
Painted himself into a corner.
And they said, so Paul, how are we going to end this? Everybody's excited. It's the big, Doctor Who Comics weekly event. How are we going to fix this? How are we getting out of this? I don't know. I haven't read the 5th part yet. What do you mean you don't know? Well, I don't really know.
I haven't figured that out.
I want to think it was, that's probably, hopefully that I don't know. I think it's, I
here's
think
the original pitch.
K9
shows up and fixes it.
Yeah.
And they all went, you can't do that.
Well, I almost would have rather seen Matt get into the TARDIS, fly into the sun, and just reboot the universe again. I mean, when my computer crashes, I hit the reset button, and that's what fixes it every time. Everything comes back. I even have a time machine. I've got everything backed up.
How are you going to fix this? The girl from that one-off special episode that Glenn hated. That one issue that's where Doctor Who's set in the real world. It turns out she's reading a comic about the Doctor, and she just tears up the last page.
This could have made that could have made this is really good now that you put that perspective because this could have been a lot worse.
Good
point.
Unfortunately,
it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. It's sad that we don't know what delayed this because we can come up with these harebrained ideas of maybe they realized that this one was so bad that they thought if they put it off a few weeks after the new series came back, people would be so excited and distracted by that this wouldn't be such a letdown. I don't know.
And it's unfair to say that it's bad.
It just did not deliver on
it's not
what it promised.
satisfying.
But it's not satisfying.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to describe it. It's just
conclusion.
for what was such a high, and maybe that was the problem. Maybe he had crafted such a great story that there just wasn't a way to satisfy what we had built up to. Yeah. And maybe I'm to blame for this. I'll take the blame for it. Sure, why not? But I also felt like Neil Edwards, who was phenomenal artwork throughout the whole thing.
And there are some panels in that are phenomenally done.
There's
and
a
then
couple
there are
of
some that are like,
panels.
what?
Yeah.
Did somebody spill some water on this?
His art consistently through this whole run was really great. We had a couple of issues on a couple of panels with character likenesses, but that was it. But this one really felt rushed.
Yeah.
A little subpar, a little like maybe... And
some of the tighter shots were fantastic.
It kind of makes me wonder if, like you said, maybe they had to go back and change something, and that's why it was delayed, and then suddenly there was a rush job on it, because some of the art just doesn't feel as tight and as well put together on this, like the story. So, I don't know. Maybe that's one of those mysteries that will just never get solved, but... We will eventually come back to the world of Titan Comics. We have, obviously, a whole bunch of 10th Doctor piling up because of the way the story arc round up.
Well, and don't we still have the 9th Doctor series that's going?
And then the 8th Doctor that's coming.
The 8th Doctor's coming, and then, of course, so 11 and 12 are continuing. Yep. So, but we will come back and do more Titan Comics. I don't know if we'll get to those during Season 9 or not.
I don't probably not. So it'll probably be after Season 9's over.
But we hope that you're still enjoying them. So
yep.
We will give you more thoughts on those later.
Shall we move on to The Witch's Familiar?
Yes.
Trapped and alone in a terrifying Dalek city, the Doctor is at the heart of an evil empire. No Sonic, no TARDIS, nobody to help. With his greatest temptation before him, can the Doctor resist? And will there be mercy? Have mercy.
That review kind of is...
Synopsis.
A lie. That synopsis is really no Sonic. Well, that's not exactly true. No TARDIS. Well, that's not exactly true. Glenn?
Do I get into my dun dun dun?
There it is.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. And I think it's funny that Keith and I we talked about when they come back, and Keith said, I don't know if they'll do the tonal shift like they did between Dark Water and
I was hoping they wouldn't.
And I said, I think they'll do the tonal shift.
I didn't think there was a tonal shift.
I think there was a huge tonal shift.
This felt like one episode, one long episode.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I think it was very different in direction was the same. The director still had a real familiarity to it. But I thought, based on the fact that the last week was build up and lead up and fan service and jaw-dropping moments, this one was a lot of character development between Missy and Clara, and character development between Davros and the Doctor, and a lot of emotion going on both sides of that, on both of those elements. And so that was the tonal shift for me. That was there's a lot less of the comedy in this one. Even though Missy's still just being very
See, I completely go the opposite direction. I think this one was funnier. I think this one was lighter in tone.
Every time we were in with Doctor and Davros,
that was very somber.
I love...
But even those moments were...
Well, he even got a laugh.
The greatest joke in the history of Doctor Who. And it's told by Davros.
What are we referring to?
You're not a very good doctor, are you?
Oh, yeah, you're not very good. Well, yeah. But that was framed in a very heavy scene, which... Did anybody else, when they're having this discussion and they're warming up and they're getting this, they're almost getting to this, we've come from one end of the spectrum to this almost quasi-friendship. Did anybody else get this, what is going on here? This is not right.
Yeah, I was very angry because as it went on, and I warmed to Davros. And I've always liked Davros. I've always loved Davros.
You thought maybe he had turned over a leaf of some sort?
And I was very angry because I didn't want him to be good.
Me too.
I didn't want him to be sad, broken, and dying. And I didn't really want him to be friends with the Doctor at the end.
Me too.
While at the same time...
Feeling a lot of
it up with a spoon, man.
But also you're very much
fascinated by the idea
fascination and the compassion, and you're like... Oh, let him see the sunset.
I
Let
know.
him see the one last sunset. And all the meantime, my other side of me's over here going, shut up. What are you doing?
So there's a tiny little part of my brain that's
He
going,
deserves not to see a sunset.
damn you, Moffat. Why are you giving me the feels for Davros?
Quit ripping me apart.
Shouldn't be doing this. And then
It almost have been called the redemption of Davros.
he grabs them cords and goes zzz, and Davros starts cackling, and I went, there it is.
Well,
And then I was mad again.
no, still in the back of my mind, though, he's doing that. He's going to give just a little bit of rigidity. And then I went, uh-oh. Suddenly, all of Davros's, like, everything that I know about Davros starts flooding in. And suddenly I'm going, don't do it, don't do it. Holly and Caitlin are going, what? I said, don't do it. It's a trap.
And Moffat told us it was going to be a trap. From the get-go. There's that line. We're going to snare a Time Lord.
He pulls Colony Sarf in and says, this is where it happens. This is how we're going to do it. And I was like, okay. And we all bit anyway. So then I was mad because I was like, oh, I fell for it. And then I was kind of upset that I lost good Davros. Even though he makes no bones about it. It's Davros.
Oh, yeah.
I know how this is going to turn out.
Meanwhile, Missy is playing with Clara like she is catnip. Like she has trapped a mouse and has forced this mouse to work with her and is just being just malicious with her, but also just as friendly and palsy as can be. And I thought that dynamic was wonderful.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
They continued it from the previous episode.
I think it was even more so in this episode.
That's part of why I felt that there wasn't the tonal shift. It was still Clara and Missy together, whereas like Death in Heaven, it was the Doctor and Clara, and then they split off for the final episode. It was more
emphasized in this one, though.
That's
why I think, again, there's that tonal shift.
I think
because it's this light playful to suddenly this really kind of bullying moments where you had that friend in school or you knew somebody in school that had friends and they treated them poorly, but they still were palsy buddies with him, and that's what Missy was this one. It was so much more this time.
I would agree there was more.
Yeah, Spike, you want we should go get a cat?
Nah. Yeah. No, that's not a good idea.
But some of it, at least in Jenna's performance for Clara, came across like, all right, I'm going to put up with you because I have to in order to save the Doctor.
Right.
It wasn't her choice to be palling around with Missy on Scarrow.
Here's the thing, and I mean no disrespect to Jenna's performance. Didn't see it. Because
I saw it more the second time.
The bright sunshine spot that was Michelle Gomez and the awesome she exuded pretty much drowned out everything else that happened during her scenes. I don't want to say that she stole the episode, but she stole the episode.
Yeah.
Like, she just completely, and it's not because she was over the top campy. It's not because it's because
she was so much fun to watch.
Well, and she was the Master.
Oh yeah.
This incarnation of the Master is probably my favorite. I'm just gonna go of all the. I love Anthony Anley. I love Roger Delgado. I love, to a certain extent, Eric Roberts. All of the Masters that have come before. This all of a sudden is the one where it's like, this is what I want. I want somebody who toes that line of the Joker. Yeah. One moment is crazy, but one moment is very calculating, and one moment is very charming, and one moment is, and she just
it's the
nailed
conglomeration
it
of
all
all
the way
the
through this. It's, well, how far do you think it is down there? I don't know. Maybe we get a rock. Push.
And did any of you guys gasp when they said sewers and think, oh, we're going to see giant clams?
I did. I wondered if we would see
and then I was so disappointed we didn't see giant clams.
No giant clams. To follow that great Huck moment up, which is a great laugh, with the, you've got my stick. Yeah, well, maybe I'll just run you through it or whatever she says. And Missy goes, oh, all right, and turns her back on her.
Yeah. Knowing she wouldn't do it.
And just waits. And
then the almost the scolding she gives her of, if you're going to threaten me, go follow through.
Yeah. Well, that's what this wonderful the delivery of this relationship was great because it brought Clara's character from this very controlling, very I'm in charge, I can deal with you, all the way down to this which is familiar, I'm following you around like a pet. I mean, that's where they went. They went from up here to clear down to here. And it really completely turned Clara on her head, because she has come to this really confident, controlling, dominant individual.
She someone more controlling.
And now and Missy's putting it to her, and she's knocking her down a peg every time we turn around. And it's disheartening to see Clara be reduced to that. But in the meantime, you're really not encouraged. You're really impressed by this, just the writing of this and how they've done this, and really kind of knocked her down to a different level. And I thought it was fantastic. All the way down to her being inside the Dalek and pleading, and the voice changing because it's all based on the emotion.
And what a great for just a cool scene when Missy's kind of parading around, going, "We'll say this, I love you, exterminate. Let's say this,
and just the glee she has with the responses she's getting."
Yeah, and just how, and so it really, I mean, we couldn't have spelled it out anymore for you. What is it like to be a Dalek? This is pretty much it. And so you kind of just file that away as Missy having fun until you get to the end, and it's like, oh, this is the Dalek that killed Clara. Here, you should shoot it. And Clara pleading, and of course, all that's coming out is, and we're
I am a Dalek.
Oh no!
Yeah, and you have that knot in your stomach. Like, how is she gonna convince him through this metal armor that is completely devoiding the emotion? And how is he gonna? And then the mercy, and I was like, oh.
Although I'm pretty sure Daleks have said mercy before.
They have.
They did. In fact, they told River Song. Yeah. But they go on to explain that, because the doctor kind of says, why would that be there?
Oh, yeah,
and the doctor wasn't around when we heard it explain mercy. True. And so the doctor instilled that into Davros, as they kind of explained at the end. Yeah. And so I thought, oh, that works so well. This doesn't have to be the first time a Dalek said it. Just has to be the first time the doctor heard it.
Yeah.
And I love that we get a little bit of this role reversal. That while Missy in part 1 says, "No, I'm not good," and pretty much maintain that through the whole thing, despite the fact that we were going along and having fun, and Missy's so great, and then she reveals her true colors. She didn't reveal anything. She just flat out said, "No, I'm not good," and she told Clara many times throughout this two-parter, "I'm going to kill you at some point." And so for her to try and pull that and make the doctor do it, Whereas Davros, we get this kind of reversal of, oh, maybe Davros is actually good. Maybe he's not such a bad guy.
Well, he even says, "I need to know before I die." What's that?
Am I a good man?
And echoed that. Oh. And I was like, wow.
Boom, boom, boom. Whoa. Julian Beach.
I wasn't as keen on him in the previous two-parter, but I think he won me over in this.
Well, he was shouty, yelly, screamy
at the end.
Davros in Journey's End and Stolen Earth and Journey's End. And in this one, he
actually gets the
level-headed, calm, maniacal, clever. I mean, just wow.
Well, he almost went from because in the previous two-parter he was more what's his face, who played Davros second, the more maniacal, laughing.
Is that Michael Wisher?
Yes, I think so. No,
Wisher was.
Wisher was first.
Wisher was first. Okay, Terry Malloy was
Terry Malloy. I couldn't remember. I kept wanting to say Malfoy. No, Terry Malloy.
Malfoy.
And then this time he got to be Wisher.
That was Draco Malfoy.
Yeah.
Just and what a great.
I never thought I'd see Davros crying.
I know.
Or his actual eyes.
I know.
That was I always kind of assumed that his eyes were just closed all the time.
I just assumed he didn't have any.
I kept thinking back, has there ever been a time where they talked about his eyes being burned out of his head? And I wonder if I think the thing that can't be rectified is some things, but I can't remember what they are in I, Davros, when we kind of talk about his backstory in Big Finish. I think that he referred to the fact that he lost his eyes, but maybe he's referring to the loss of the use of his eyes because obviously all of his implants were supposed to enhance him.
Yeah, I kind of got
as bad as he looked. So it makes sense that he would just basically abandon the use of his
because
his personal
this
eyes
one is much more powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I walked away with from this episode. Thinking.
And what a great visual when he's not in the chair.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea.
Who knows? Who knew? I kept thinking there was legs down there, and they just didn't work.
And even a hand. There was no other hand. Then no wonder he wasn't using it.
Too. Yeah, and the doctor trying to say
that was the greatest moment in the history of many great moments in this episode when he rolls in. Admit it, you've all had this same nightmare. Anyone for Dodgems?
Wow. That was great. I felt so justified because this story. Oh, I talked a little bit before this. I was very concerned. I wasn't concerned on the sense that they weren't telling a good story. It didn't go where I wanted it to go. It was more of Moffat did a really good job of convincing me that I didn't have this figured out. Because when I told you last week that Missy is the apprentice and the doctor is the magician, and this is all played out, the doctor knows calculating exactly what's happening. And then, as this all played out, they had that heartfelt moment between him and the doctor, or between Davros and the doctor, and then suddenly, it's all. And when he counted 3, I went, "There it is." I feel justified. It is planned because we went down that road where you thought, "Oh, Davros had this all calculated, and this was a huge ploy by him." Oh, wait a minute. So the doctor,
which I go one step further. In retrospect, now seeing the second part. Missy was not the apprentice. Davros was.
No.
I think Davros is the magician's apprentice because you can look at this as
he
learned everything he knows from the doctor in a way.
It does work on another level. I think you're right.
But I think even going back to the young kid, because you can make the argument.
Seeing them walk away at the end, I mean.
It's not, you can make the argument that it's not so much the doctor instilled a sense of mercy into the eventual creation of the Daleks. You could make the argument that the doctor is responsible directly for the creation of the Daleks. Because here's this young boy trapped in a minefield, and here this guy shows up with a whisk weapon yelling exterminate, and he takes out an entire minefield. That's a good idea. I should research that. What else do we need? Armor. Okay. I mean, you can almost make this is now what is...
I certainly agree that it can be applied on that level as well, yeah. But just the justification of, I had this figured out. Yay. And then I went one step further and I went, I know where we're going. I know where we're going with this. And it was the whole prophecy, which we've added another thing to the Gallifrey and the Doctor's mythos. And the prophecy being... It spoke of a hybrid creature, 2 great warrior races forced together to create a warrior greater than either. And I thought, this must be an actual prophecy founded in fact, within the universe, within the mythos. And it's never been alluded to before. So this is something brand new that Moffat is injected into the mythos. And I thought, this is really clear. Is this what's going to happen? This is the fulfillment of this prophecy. And then when you realize the doctor is actually in control, and he has done this, he's given his energy life force in order to rise up the decaying Daleks in the bottom to overthrow the new Daleks, the live Daleks, or still Daleks that still have their faculties. And all that suddenly is resolved. And I thought, that kind of that prophecy still exists. And you know who the warrior is that was created in all of this? Clara. Clara was in the Dalek, and even though my daughter kept arguing, you didn't see the regenerative stuff coming out of her Dalek. And I said, no, you're absolutely right.
Because it seemed to be affecting the Dalek skin, not the Dalek armor.
Exactly. But here's the thing, is I said, they're not going to show you that because it's going to be way too obvious that's affecting her as well. But I think she was affected by that same thing, and I think Jenna's departure will be her regenerating into our next companion, not dying. I don't think she's going to leave. I think she's still going to be there. We're just going to have, now she's got Time Lord DNA or regenerative qualities. Time Lord magic, as Davros called it, which I thought was really cool. That ancient Time Lord magic of regeneration. Which, again, it's just magic science we don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
So this is my prediction, is that's how Jen is leaving. And I think that even leans more to my premonition a few weeks ago when I said, I think I know who Maisie Williams is playing. I think it's Jenna in the future, or Clara in the future. I think that's why she recognizes him.
A lot of people are jumping on the idea that is the Master's daughter, since she made reference to her in this episode. That's who Maisie's playing.
Could be too. I didn't think about that. I hadn't seen that yet. Anyway, but I really whether Maisie Williams is going to be a regeneration of Clara or not, I think that Clara will turn out to be the big reveal here that she actually is the warrior that was created. And that the prophecy was fulfilled. But the Doctor thinks that, no, this was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I pretty much just thwarted that because I had a different plan, and this isn't really what this is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were supposed to be left with that impression. But there's something that Missy says, and I was looking because I wish I could remember exactly what it was. Because Holly brought up, she said, well, what was the purpose of putting Jen in the Dalek anyway, except for she said, well, so putting Clara in the Dalek, was that part of the plan? And I said, no, I think that was the one thing that the Doctor did not.
Otherwise, he would have known why the Dalek was there.
And I said, I think that was Missy still doing her master-like thing she's putting her own spin on this. She's changing things around. She's fixing it so that the Doctor's not entirely controlled. She still has a plan of herself, a scheme, and so she knew what the Doctor was going to do. And by putting putting Clara in the Dalek, I think she knew that Clara would then in turn get some of that regenerative energy too. And I also think that she was baiting him to kill Clara. But I think that was part of that connection as well. Because Missy says something to the effect.
Was it about the... I'm pulling up the quote now. This is why I gave her to you in the first place, to make you see the friend inside the enemy inside the friend.
Yeah.
Everyone's a bit of both. Everyone's a hybrid.
And I think everyone's a bit of both. Everyone's a hybrid. It's supposed to be this kind of poetic moment of showing it, but I think it's also Moffat doing this tiny bit of telegraphing of here's your hybrid. I think it's clever. And in fact, I think those words will be flashed back to when this is revealed as well. So sorry if I ruined it for anybody. So I could be way off base on this.
So just to clarify,
I mean,
so I
River may not be Amy's daughter. It's possible. Wait a minute.
just so I understand where you're saying is that Maisie Williams is the regenerated version of Clara down the road, and that she will be the next companion, or no?
Well, no. Here, that was what I said a few weeks ago, and then I kind of backed off of that a little bit. And I'm saying that might even be more too, but I think I'm most concrete on the fact that Clara absorbed some of that regenerative quality, and that will endow her with the ability, as the Time Lords do, to regenerate. I'm going to go a step further and say I suspect that might be who Maisie Williams, but that one I'm not concrete on yet. But okay. I am certain that Clara is the fulfillment of the prophecy. That I'm certain of now, based on the
and she'll regenerate into the new companion.
And she will regenerate into the new companion. So this will be the first time we ever see a companion regenerate, with the exception of Ramona. Regenerated, I don't know, half a dozen times before she landed on a body she was happy with. But anyway, I suspect that she is the fulfillment of the prophecy. That's the one I'm most concrete on. I think that lends now to my idea that Jenna becomes, or that Clara becomes whatever Maisie's character is, and that's why she says that to him.
Interesting.
And they're going to obviously meet the regeneration, because Clara's in that episode as well. So they're going to meet that regeneration before.
Well, here's a fun thing: is we don't know the definitive answer of when Clara's last episode is.
No, we don't. We don't know when.
We know that she has finished shooting. we know that at some point in time in season 9, she's gone. And I was reflecting on this today. I was talking with James, and I realized this might be, if they can hold the secret, the last time you'll get this.
Oh, yeah.
Because back in the day...
To keep it a surprise.
Back in the day, you never knew.
Oh, yeah.
Is this a regeneration episode? Is this the last one with my doctor? Or is this the one where the companion leaves? You never knew. And now it's a big media circus, and there's all this information pushed down our throats way ahead of time. But simply by putting it out there that, she's leaving. Now, I mean, if I have... my suspicion is that it'll be the finale. That Clara will disappear at some point in the finale. We'll have River at Christmas, and then the next companion next season. I could be way, way wrong with that. But that realistically means that from this point out, for the next, what do we got, 10 weeks?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For the next 10 weeks.
Could happen at any time.
Every single time Clara's in danger,
this
might be it. So think about that for a minute, because this is all of a sudden like, ooh, I didn't realize that. I just assumed that the teleport was a teleport and not a disintegration beam. It actually could have been a disintegration beam. Wouldn't that have been just zap? And then we go and the episode opens and here's Missy out there on the planet and she survived. And we look around, there's no Clara. And we get to the end of the episode and the doctor goes, "Where's Clara?" She goes, "Oh, she didn't make it."
I think the problem with this, the problem with this right now, though, is we saw enough of the trailer to know that Clara's in at least a number of other episodes. We don't know how many of those. We don't know how many. Because you're right, there are still 10 episodes left. I know for a fact she's in a couple that I'm familiar with. But beyond that, she could go anytime.
She could go at any time, so that's kind of cool. Once again, the episode was not without problem. They were a little bit smaller, but they were problems nonetheless.
I don't know how I feel about the Doctor being able to pull up regeneration energy anytime he wants.
That's one of the ones that
I know he's done it once before.
He's done it a couple times before.
Moffat has,
because once was for River Song.
He's given it to River twice.
Yeah,
the one was when he was dying and gave her.
Well, no, he was dying and she gave it to him.
That's right. It was the reverse. And then when he gave it to her in
I can excuse that one a little bit more because she was fresh off regeneration.
Yeah.
So Romana's kind of given us you can have some flexibility when you freshly regenerate. Well, that's how I can retcon all of her different forms. She's not burning through regenerations. She's tweaking.
Yeah.
Kind of how he could grow a new hand.
Exactly,
back.
just like in Christmas Invasion.
But the fact that the Doctor, not close to regeneration, was able to heal River's hand and then also pull for this.
I think though that the other thing that I can fudge it with is the fact that in Last Christmas, the one before that, Time of the Doctor, the Time Lords this was the first time we've seen the Time Lords just grant new regenerations. And so he used that regenerative energy in order to even use against the Daleks in that one.
Yeah,
destroy the enemies.
It's a whole new rules. We don't know
exactly.
What those
so
rules
I can kind of fudge the fact that maybe now he does have that. He's got a little more control over that regenerative energy, whatever the Time Lords gave to him. So I can kind of say, okay.
And we don't know, is it a new set? Is it an unlimited?
And it's not solid enough. It's not solid enough evidence. But at the very least, we don't know yet.
That's a way to retcon it a little bit, at least for now.
Right.
Until we get told.
So I have to admit, though, I did feel a little uncomfortable. And he was just casually rubbing his hand.
But he was kind of doing this.
Yeah.
Which, again, played back in with the magician and Davros, the magic of regeneration and pulling that off, which was kind of cool.
Ancient Time Lord magic of regeneration. Love that.
Oh, I just lost it. It
you were talking without it. It was without its. It's not without its problems. And you were talking. He brought up the regenerative energy and. Colony Sarf was kind of shoved to the back in this one. Now he wasn't useless because he was the mechanism. And that was part of the trap.
That was all.
Yeah, that was part of. He was part of the trap. So, was the chair that the Doctor was sitting in? Was that him as well? That was the other thing that I thought was interesting. That the only other chair on Skaro made me wonder if that was. I mean, you could have obviously just had him sitting there.
On the
and
floor
not even. Well, no. You could have had him in a chair and just not even mentioned it. But to point to the fact that there was a chair, is that Moffat going, somebody's going to say, why is there another chair on Skaros? They don't need it. Or is it a there's a reason why there's another chair there. I don't know.
I think you're jumping at shadows.
Maybe.
I think it was the people are going to nail me to the wall about this chair.
Why is there a chair here?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a chair on Scarrow in the first one when they were just sitting on the floor, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Here,
and it provided a great line of dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Why did we get the backstory of the teleport?
Because people were going to... How do they survive?
Okay, so
They wanted that explanation.
Moffat wanted to give the concrete answers.
So here's my problem, though, is that you gave us 5 minutes on what we all kind of presumed was, well, it was a teleport. We got 5 minutes of explanation on that, but not one shred of concrete proof on why Scarrow is still here. They rebuilt it.
Yeah, that was
What?
That was the one line, is that they rebuilt it.
They rebuilt it.
Yeah.
The planet, the city, the
Yeah.
star.
Which is funny that we talked about that last week, that, the Hand of Omega could have done something to the sun that wiped out the surface of Scarrow.
Right.
It didn't necessarily destroy it, as we've all kind of imagined that it just completely didn't exist anymore. It just was obliterated. It may have just completely... And I still like the fact that I think that when they were there for the Asylum, that it was basically in a new Genesis, and that's why there was ice on the planet, because it was going through a new process. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. We didn't get
But
that.
that's one of those things that's
Well, it
like,
didn't
don't get me
bother
wrong,
me so
Moffat. I
much.
appreciate the fact that you're going to nail this down for the people who are screaming for
Yeah.
your head and saying, why doesn't he explain this? Okay, here.
But also the teleportation scene where she's telling the story, I think that is designed to solidify the idea that the Doctor is always presuming he will survive.
It's more about that than the actual teleportation.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Yes.
Because that comes full circle at the end when the Doctor starts counting down, and you realize this is another instance where he is still ahead of the game. He's
planning
always
to survive.
He's always playing to survive, and this is another instance. So to me, while that seemed a little bit of okay, we've dropped this in there, and it seems like a little too much to explain the teleporters, it's also a foreshadowing in such a way that is going to pay off later. I didn't think that until we got to that, and then I was suddenly satisfied with the fact that we went into that whole Escher painting, MC Escher painting.
And it makes sense, too, because at no point in time have we ever seen Davros not surrounded by Daleks.
Oh, yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So when you get the message, Davros wants to see you, that's part of the package.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're going to go visit your cousin. That means I'm going to have to deal with her kids. That just that just comes with it. So the Doctor had to have known. At no point in time did he go into this thinking it's just Davros and Snake Guy. No, it's Davros and Snake Guy and a whole bunch of Daleks. So I've got to have a contingency plan.
And they call it Scarrow, but what proof do we have that it's not just a recolonized planet? That they took over some other planet and put a city on it? If the actual planet itself had been destroyed, why couldn't they have recolonized another planet?
Well, and why was it invisible to
Well, they have recolonized other planets, and they've never called them Scarrow. So,
but if their previous planet is now destroyed completely, where they did
they recolonized after Scarrow.
Okay.
In the Big Finish story, they talk about.
Well, they took over a whole other galaxy.
Yeah, they
that's right.
pretty much took over a galaxy and didn't rename anything Scarrow. So.
But why would it have to be invisible too, other than the cool reveal?
What was it?
Well,
When Scarrow suddenly materialized,
To hide the fact that it was still there.
That it still
I
exists.
got the impression that it was kind of it's a rebuilding moment. You want to basically regarner your armies. The other thing that I think that a reason it has to be Scarrow is because there was so many. They're not dead, but the graveyard was so full.
Okay.
It has to be
point.
Scarrow because it had to be a number of years for that many oozy Daleks to be in the sewers, which I thought was hilarious. When they went down the sewers, my first thought was I flashed to the comic relief special, Curse of Fatal Death, when the Master falls down through the hole and he spends all that time in the Dalek sewers. And I was
the Tercerus sewers.
This is it. And that was Moffat that wrote it. A very different kind of sewer, but still a sewer on Scarrow.
So what do we think Missy is up to with the ending? I have an idea.
That I don't know. And
Missy's going to team up with the Daleks and do what?
I'm sort of glad that I don't know, because I think that's another element. What I had hoped for what I really had secretly hoped for. And this kind of, I don't know that I believe the rumors that 8 is coming back in the series this season, but in my mind, I wanted this to be the... Although I guess they say he was taken back to Skaro and put on trial. I wanted this to somehow tie into she was captured and put on trial, and now Seven's going to come back and pick up her essence, and he doesn't realize that. Although in the shot from Doctor Who the movie, we do see what appears to be a man standing in the shackles. So I just had that moment of, wow, talk about wibbly wobbly timey wimey. If this is the moment when the master is put on trial and then executed. And then so, wibbly wobbly timey wimey, Seven, his past self's going to have to come get and wouldn't know why, just that he was put on trial on Skaro and wouldn't know that he had regenerated into a woman because by the time he got there, he had to take the remains. So it was one of those. Oh, that would have been so brilliant.
That would explain why the Doctor is the one going to pick up his remains.
Yeah, exactly.
Millions of fanboys screaming out in terror. I actually enjoy that aspect of it because I think once again, Moffat is doing his part to kind of help tie in the classic series. Mm-hmm. And this to me is just one more solidification for Doctor Who the movie, that the Master requests the Doctor to come pick up his remains and transport him home. And the Doctor sends the Master his confession disc.
Yeah.
It just, okay, there's just a nice semblance of balance to that. I don't know. I know there are people out there that are not happy with this two-parter, and I can't really fathom why.
I don't understand why.
It is adult Doctor Who. I mean,
I'll tell you,
it's really,
right now, though,
well written.
If you look online, the wealth of people loved this. There are a few out there that have problems with it, which is the exact opposite of last season. A lot of the people that I saw that were complaining about last season are now absolutely loving the first 2 episodes of this series and saying this really is great. He's back on par.
Peter Capaldi has found his legs as a character, and it's
so,
the Doctor they're familiar with now.
There are people out there with problems with it. There's always going to be, though. We've talked about episodes that we've just gushed all over that we couldn't figure out why people didn't like it either. So I mean. There's always going to be those people out there, and I'm actually very heartened by the fact that there are fewer people out there that are saying, "Oh, this is terrible. Doctor Who stinks now. Moffat should quit. Peter Capaldi's not a great." There are much fewer saying that, so I'm actually very much loving the fact that it seems like these 2 stories have really hit a good number of fandom and brought a lot of people back in the fold that were falling away. So. I'm not even going to bother with that little tiny. Don't
let that negativity in your life.
Tiny negative people.
To heck with them. They can just stay away from Doctor Who. No.
I know it did not perform well in the ratings this week, but it was also up against World Cup final or something.
The sports.
There was something sports.
World Cup final. That was a few months ago.
I don't know. There's something sports that happened over there, and apparently that even that bumped Dancing with the Stars into second place, and so that was kind of big news because this was the lowest 4-point-something million, which was the lowest numbers for Doctor Who viewing since the show came back.
But I think
again, it doesn't count in the iTunes or the repeats.
We'll see this week is what they also do. Then is they count eyes on screen is what they do this weekend, and then what they do is they figure in the iPlayer returns, and a lot of times when there's a low turnout for that, you'll find that the iPlayer is huge, and so I think what that's going to happen is I think we'll see the numbers balance out because a lot of people will realize a live sporting event against something that I can watch anytime this week on iPlayer.
Right.
Absolutely, I'm going to watch Doctor Who later on iPlayer. So we'll find that this does a big rebound as far as numbers go.
Well, Doctor Who, I think, at least certainly here, it fits into that. It's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's not event TV, but because of how it's, on, being that you have to go to BBC America or you have to go to the BBC Player in other countries or whatnot, that it becomes a challenge to catch it when it's actually being aired in some cases.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
you got to make more of an effort.
I think you're going to find more people paying for the iTunes season pass or whatever format that you're getting in order to be able to watch it that may not be
that's the
live
nature
on
of television. And in fact, I think we're on an antiquated system, even here in the United States, as far as Nielsen goes. Is we're on this antiquated system of we look at numbers, eyes on screen. You can't do that anymore. In the advent of DVR and Hulu and all of these other services where you can get your shows after the fact and watch it at your convenience, we need to figure out a new way to track these numbers. And they haven't done. Now, Nielsen does start to look at the DVR number, codes and things like that, or numbers and things like that. But it's really hard for me to get discouraged by ratings, and I think that the networks put way too much stock in an antiquated system.
I agree.
They need to figure out a way to do it better and include everything in this new age that we've moved into as far as how we consume our television. So.
Yeah.
Was it? Is that a possibility? You think maybe down the road was if the BBC winds up becoming this defunct entity that is no longer necessarily in charge of the production of this kind of stuff? Do you foresee? I mean, we talked about BBC America just stepping up and footing the bill for the rest of it, but is that something maybe Hulu or Netflix or somebody else might just jump on it and say, okay, we're going to bring the show on, and then all of a sudden we'll get. Season 10 will come out and you'll be able to digest it all at once in one chunk.
The way that Keith was talking about
subscriptions-based
service is the same thing. So I think that's the first step for the BBC is to create a different entity where they're not publicly funded anymore and make them privately funded by generating a revenue stream where, if you want it, you pay for it individually so that you're not asking everybody to do it. I think it's the same thing as if Hulu or Netflix did that. You're still talking about what Keith was referring to in the article. So,
and Netflix is the only one that does pretty much all season at once.
Yeah.
Because Community on Yahoo was a week at a time.
Yeah.
Mindy Project now on Hulu is a week at a time. So they'd still probably be a week at a time. Just that way they get more people coming to their service every week.
That's why I'm not concerned about Doctor Who going away right now. Because it is on such a high and it's doing so well that there's always going to be those safety nets out there. I mean, it generates the season pass for iTunes, Apple generates a ton of money for them. They get them if you buy the season pass, and there's a lot of people that buy season passes because they don't have BBC America or they don't live in the UK, and so that's how they get their Doctor Who. There's so many services out there that there's somebody's going to grab this. There's no way that Doctor Who is going away at this time. Now, if it fails on its own, then it'll go away. But as long as it continues to be a viable, solid storytelling device, and it has good writing, and it has good episodes, and it has good performances, don't worry, your Doctor Who is not going anywhere very soon. So
yeah, agreed.
All right, what do we got coming up next on the schedule?
Well, next week on the schedule, the three of us will be winging our way down to Wichita. Not really winging; we'll be driving.
You guys aren't flying?
We're not flying.
I'm driving to Kansas City. I'm flying down to mid-continent. What is it now? Eisenhower? Is that what they call it?
I don't know.
Eisenhower Airport.
I booked a private plane out of Forbes.
Oh, you
actually.
did?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you should let me know before I bought my tickets. I'd have just flew with you.
Would have helped cut the cost of gas.
Yeah. Wait a minute. My ticket was probably cheaper than your... Well, maybe not nowadays.
We're going to Wichita, Kansas for Time Eddie, and there are still opportunities apparently for you to get tickets if you are in the neighborhood or would like to be in the neighborhood and make an excuse to come to the neighborhood. Come see us. Do we know? Are we going to attempt to do any of our panels live, or
we need to see what the setup's like at the convention first.
There's far too many factors in there for me to say, we're going to do that.
We may be live next week. keep an eye on the feeds. That's of course Twitter and blah blah blah. All that. We'll be doing Friday Night Who this week is Tomb of the Cybermen, in celebration of the fact that we will be doing a panel with Deborah Watling, who played Victoria. So we'll be doing that, and then obviously our show next week we'll be discussing the new episode Under the Lake. And we'll have our thoughts on Time Eddie and how all that went. And maybe some side trips, or I'm not sure exactly how that'll pan out. But again, keep an eye on the feeds. The following week is Warriors of the Deep for Friday Night Who. And then episode 250 in the middle of season 9. And I have nothing planned.
Have we had anything planned for anniversaries in the past?
Nope.
Then it won't be a surprise that we don't have
Maybe we'll have cake.
Okay.
Just for that. Maybe we will have cake on the podcast.
If I've talked you into handing over some cold, hard cash for a cake, then I've won.
We'll have cake and gold medal ribbon.
Ooh. That's a
Force
big
the dance
throwback.
on me. Force the dance on me.
And of course, our discussion of Before the Flood. So, New Who, man, it's on. Enjoy it. If you are so inclined and would like a basket of goodies. It's not a real basket, Alex. You don't have to worry about that one. Not that I wouldn't love to send you an actual basket of stuff for your Patreon gift.
It's not as feasible.
You're right. It's not feasible. But
even here in the States.
I do have a nice flat package that I can squish into an envelope, and I think maybe, we'll tie it to some carrier pigeons or something. We'll get it to you. So if you want. And I still have a call out to some people who have not given me their addresses. So please, if you are supporting us on Patreon, give me your address and I'll get you your stuff. If you are not supporting us on Patreon, please consider doing so.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.